All right, everybody, we're here for our second part. We really wanted to talk about a little more depth on why Black Ballad and why we're producing it for Shadowdark. I'm Eric Frankhouse, the designer for Black Ballad Second Chances, and of course, my lovely friend here, Rick.
I am Rick. I'm one of the co-founders of Storytellers Forge and one of the main writers for the Black Ballad campaign itself.
And Captain Sarcastic has been his name in the background, but he doesn't know that.
Shh.
Yeah, I know, right? So, why Black Ballad? Why are we doing Black Ballad products for Shadowdark? You've already made them for 5e. It has a devoted fan base that loves what it is. What's the reason for doing it for Shadowdark? Why did you go, you know what? Let's make it for another fucking system.
Well, quite simply because somebody told me that in Shadowdark, when the torches go out, bad things happen, and there's no sun in the Sunless Crossing. So I was like, well, we have a place of darkness already. No, that there's a part of that. There's a part of that.
Straight
Uh,
murder.
um, the truth is that when we wrote the storyline for the Black Ballad, so many players fell in love with the setting, and we wanted to make a setting book first. But we decided before we do that, let's explore other systems to see if there's a better fit that we could design. Just here's a core sandbox setting, and maybe start exploring aspects of the setting with telling smaller tales that are unique to them.
Mhm.
We had done a previous conversion because we're narrative writers and we can write all of this stuff for any game system. I mean, hell, I'll be honest, I have absolutely run a Black Ballad campaign using Clan Bali from Vampire the Masquerade set in Antarctica. So
Of course you have.
yes, I am that gamer, right? But I'm that storyteller, right? You've been around, I get enough chops, you know how to rip a system out and, run with the core concepts that are there.
Mhm.
But there's a beauty and design of a game system that also supports the narrative of what you're trying to do. And Shadowdark does work really well for the type of storytelling that I love. I grew up on like Wraith the Oblivion, and Vampire the Masquerade, a few riffs here and there, and Deadlands, right?
Yeah.
And those were my games that I ran and story told a lot of. And I do have a love for that. Let's have this slightly open but heavily narrative tale. And the plot of the Black Ballad being this: does resurrection even should how do I say this? Resurrection, should it have a cost, and should it even be allowed to exist?
You mean
Because
other than the goal to pay to have someone
right,
resurrect you? Like, what's
right,
the actual toll on a person?
right, or just how does it affect a fantasy setting in general when you have magic that brings people back from the dead, right? If it's willy-nilly and it's pretty easy to do, then why does anybody care about risk? Whereas if it's impossible, different, you can change a setting by the magic involved in
Yeah.
how people come back from the dead, right? And specifically, when you look at all the themes in the campaign storyline of the Black Ballad, and then we have this storm of broken worlds that this Shadow Dark element sits within.
Mm-hmm.
And the Storm of Broken Worlds is the graveyard for dead gods from all over the worlds and all over the cosmos. And it's very easy to get lost. It supports Hexcrawl. It's a great adventure. And the characters will have incredible impotence to actually try to get through this, or they risk unraveling or going back into the Sunless Crossing, right?
Yeah.
If you want to escape this area, you have to do it. And the only way to get here is to die. The only way to get out is to go through.
I mean, that's one of the mottos I think that came up right away when we had our first or second discussion is like, you're dead, now what? Like, what happens next for a player? Like, normally when a character dies, it's over. And in Shadowdark, for those who don't know Shadowdark mechanics, when you die, the death save isn't 5e death saves. One, you only get back up if you make a 20. Like, roll a natural 20. Two, someone makes an intelligence check 15 to get you up, which there's no skills, so you better have a background to give you advantage or a med kit, something like that. Three, someone heals you somehow through magic or whatever it is, a class talent, something along those lines. But when you go down, you roll a d4 and you add your constitution bonus to it. And that's how many rounds you have until you are kaput. minimum of one. And when I read that and I thought about people dying in a game, I love, for me, when a player is going through the death, is giving them bits and pieces they can see of their past life and things that have happened. But in this game, we do it a little differently. And I think it ties to the Shadowdark dying thing really well. Do we want to talk about what happens to a character when they die and what's taken away from you?
Yeah, I think
And
that
why
this
it
one,
matches Shadowdark so well?
yes, I think that this is the one that we want to talk about that in.
Yeah. So, look, when you die in a game, when I talked to Rick originally, he talked about the unraveling. The part of you just kind of just the essence of what you are can't keep itself together. In the Black Ballad, is that a ethereal or a corporeal unraveling?
So, okay, the premise here is that you aren't undead, right? You are actually just your dead soul. And that's really important to put
Mm-hmm.
into place. You're not some lich or a skeleton or anything like that. You are your adventurer as you are dead, and you are in purgatory, the realm of waiting before you're sent to your afterlife. You're stuck here until you're sorted. And the reason this realm even existed in the first place was, can you imagine how pissed gods and devils would be if everybody was getting resurrected or brought back out of their afterlives?
Yep.
So they got together and they put together a realm that's like everybody will forget about this place when they leave. So nobody remembers it intentionally once you're out of this place. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a passing plane that you go through, but you
Mm-hmm.
sit there and you have to wait as long as it would be for somebody to resurrect you or like whatever diviners kind of say, you're just kind of stuck here. But if you
Yep.
die while you're in here, because people are still going to fight, maybe there was a pretty tree that had one like, pomegranate on it or something like that. And, you got into a fight with somebody over it.
Yeah.
Or uh, either way, rivals die because nothing says the bad guys don't show up here too.
Yep.
And so when death happens, you lose a bit of yourself. You begin unraveling, but you also perhaps start becoming more and more of an incorporeal undead. Now, in the Black Ballad 5e version, I had always been fascinated by shadows, whites, and those kind of incorporeal undead, and I was like, where do they
You a
come from?
Wraith fan?
Right,
No. Say it ain't
right.
so.
Oh, it's not like writing so much shadow guiding might have given me some
And look, let's
inspiration.
be real. Every designer and writer writes to the things they love. Otherwise, what you're writing is not for you, and it sure as shit isn't going to feel like for the people reading it.
Like just like the reason I threw myself at the Crow project was because I'm a massive fan,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
but it's about
One of the
coming back
best
from the dead.
soundtracks ever.
Ever, yes, just hands down.
Yeah.
Uh, but I always wanted to know where those undead truly came from,
Mm-hmm.
and in the design discussions that we were having around the table when we were making the Black Ballad, it was like, well, what if we made these souls that had unraveled all the way to the point when you die so many times in the Sunless Crossing, you're in this
Yep.
purgatory, you're getting recycled, you respawn, you come back because you're stuck here,
But it has to be a
right?
cost.
But there's a cost, so you start losing your memories, but you start getting powers
Should we
that
just
make
show
you,
them the game mode?
yeah, go for it. Take a
So
tour.
so here's the 2-page spread for it. It is a full game mode where you unravel. There's an effect for that, and then there is a memory effect as well. So I'm just gonna kind of zoom in here for y'all so you can see it. So, like for example, unraveling is a D10 effect. If you roll a 5, you no longer require food, drink, and air. You'll begin to notice this is the beginning of like becoming that undead thing in a lot of these, or the shadow, or that kind of thing as well. But there's also bonuses like you could become immune to exhaustion and charm effects, or take an extra die of damage from good priests, showing that effect of being in here for too long. But the memory loss, I think, is the key to me in this game. I love the idea of like you being a third level character. You come in here and suddenly shit starts going south for you. And you begin to lose any form of resemblance of who you once were. Lose key childhood memory. lose all the memories of a close friend. We had that happen during the playtest that I did. And the two people came in as friends. They died in whatever setting they were in, came in, and they forgot about each other. Well, at least one forgot about the other. And it became a dynamic moment in that scene that we were running in a game that is otherwise people trying to survive and get the fuck out.
I will hands down tell you the most goosebump raising moments that we've had watching people play it on stream, hearing the stories and the impact that it's had on players' table
Mhm.
has been just phenomenal. We've had people approach us and be like, this mechanic and this idea is so therapeutic for the table and so cathartic for what they're doing, especially when your players are convicted enough to start willingly getting themselves killed and making sacrifices to achieve a goal, but what are they willing to pay to give that up?
Have you ever had somebody just absolutely unravel to the point of not
Yes.
being around anymore?
Yes, and intentionally so in some of the most heroic and epic moments in like sort of the main Black Ballad storyline.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, and uh, obviously in an expanded setting where you're looking at magic and you're looking at memory loss, one of the core designing principles that we designed into just the setting of the Black Ballad, that trading in memories was the most illegal thing that you could possibly do, because money doesn't matter in
Black
the
market
lands of
currency,
the
baby.
memories do.
Yeah, yeah, and I've always been a big fan of that. And when I was started doing the Shadow Dark for this, I was like, this to me, the idea of the conviction mode of play was such to me a core tenet of the setting that I like. This has to be the mode of play because when I look at Shadow Dark and look at settings, I want them to give me the mechanics that makes Shadow Dark work with the narrative and the story that they are writing. And I think the conviction mode is one of those things that does that. It brings in the elements of what we saw in the 5e version, but makes it mechanically sound in the Shadow Dark version and makes it playable. One of the key tenets you were saying is that when this happens, the promise was that it's a meaningful death without killing the play momentum. That the story continues going, and really the loss of memory is your choice in what it is. You may not have even written that up. And Shadow Dark is so much about emergent play and the style of emergent play that this kind of game mode mixed with the Black Ballad as a setting nails that. Like just it brings it to the forefront in a way that I don't know many campaigns do.
And the fun thing is I want to ask you a question on the flip side. We
Sure.
had as you asked me about like, hey, why is this concept in the Black Ballad,
Yeah.
important? But even this book is meant to also stand alone as just a pure Shadow Dark supplement.
Yes.
uh, Outside of the Sunless Crossing, even if you never dip into the setting, the conviction mode of play could very well change a setting that you're running and like layer on that. What would that look like
So
for you if you were running one of yours?
So here's a couple cool things. Like, first off, there's all the curse scrolls that have come out for Shadow Dark. Each one of those has a big sandbox hex crawl style of play, short of the latest one, which is city style of play. But I feel like what it does is it lets people create the story of their character through play, and it gives them guidelines. I've said this in numerous podcasts I have been on, I've said it in many panels. I believe that the rules at the table are the love language between the table. Without those rules, you cannot speak the game. You can talk narrative, but you can't actually talk how to get things done in the game. That's why dice exist. That's why rules on feats, talents, and whatever game system you're playing exist. That's why stats exist. Things like the conviction mode allows emergent play to come out for your background and your story because nobody wants to write a 5 page, I shouldn't say nobody. Most people don't want to write a 5 page background. But when something like option, what is it? Option one, the idea of losing a key childhood memory. No one's thought about their character's childhood in a depth of that. But if you die, and I say that the memory is taken from you, from your key childhood memory, what was that? I go, and the camera passes over to your party, trying to bring you back to life while you contemplate that. And I give them a moment to live in that second to figure out, fuck, what will my key childhood memory be?
So I'm gonna be honest. I would 100% start a living Shadow Dark campaign
Oh,
and
yeah.
put conviction mode in play. And before the characters even like met, I would have them roll on the table once,
Yep.
just for like you've
To
already
set it.
died once. You've already tasted this thing. What do you know? What would you play with?
Specifically, if you're playing one of the new ancestries, I would really do that. So the conviction mode's really simple. I think it's something that you can add on to any campaign, even if you're not playing. Because we wanted this book to be, we wanted to be a catch-all. Like if we could have one drug, the goal would be this is for every Shadow Dark campaign. Like if you're playing Scarlet Minotaur, you can use this for Scarlet Minotaur. If you're playing Curse Scroll #2, you can use it from that. If you're playing a homebrew, great. If you're playing my setting of Breachers and you're dying inside the wall, perfect. If you want to move over into playing Black Ballad, we got you. The goal was this to be both in the 80s could be a splat book or a supplement book mixed with the idea of getting into the Black Ballad as a setting. And the conviction mode is kind of happens because when you die in this area, like when you're playing, it's a D4 rounds and you rise back from the dead as if you had done a complete rest. And that too, I think we should talk about what it
Yeah,
does in a game.
because that has some power to it in a
Mm-hmm.
epic fight, actually.
You're making the choice to die to get all your spells back, all of your hit points back. If your talent has uses, you get those back, and allows you to go up from the dead and in that boss fight have a pivotal moment, but at a cost. And it makes that shitty punch me clown 5e aspect where you get hit, you go down, you come up, you go down, you come up. There's now a cost. Every time you get up, something of you has changed. And that makes story, and we're all here to tell a story because if we weren't, we would just play a miniature game. It does the
those
thing we want.
those epic level things with like the most memorable goosebumps that I talked about of a player like really having conviction with their character, be like, no, this is my moment. It's the Dragon Ball Z,
Yeah.
next level up. Like, hey, you come back with a perk, you've cost something, but you now get everything refreshed. And that can change and allow your characters in a Shadow Dark game specifically to engage with higher level challenges,
Yeah.
um, and really have those fight have teeth. And no matter what, you're walking away bloodied with bar memories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100% true. So to kind of like we don't want this to be a long one. We just wanted to give you a reason of why we're making the Black Ballad for Shadow Dark. We both saw it as a really good fit. We both saw ways to make the mechanics of the game sing the heavy metal song we wanted it to sing. It through the modes of play and the new spells and God, I can't wait till we get to the monster design because you want to challenge your party. I got you. It's done. You don't need a Tarask anymore. There's other things out there that are dangerous. But I think the other thing too is like we talked about what does Shadow Dark do better than most games for tension and pace. You already talked about there not being any light in the Sunless Crossing. Nobody has dark vision in this game. The monsters and the things in the dark are the only things that can see. And having to have torchlight or spells to do that brings one, I think, the vision of being in the crossroads with all the buildings lit up so you're safe while you're there. But the idea of lights going out in moments, or your torch burning out in an alley and that wraith showing up, or the thing there to collect your memory from death. There's so many fun things you can do in that. I think Shadow Dark brings that tension and the fear of death because you don't fear death in 5e. Like trying to
No,
actually kill someone in 5e was hard. You can
it was
do it.
it was one of the literal designing principles of why we made the book,
Yeah. Now
right?
now we
Like,
can just do it because it's part of the game. And we give them a way to come back. So like those who think Shadow Dark is a little too gruff, this might be a good mode of play. You can come back from what you did, but what's the cost? Because you can only come back so many times. For a mode of clarity, there is an end to it. And then on top of that, we also wanted to talk about what does Shadowdark intentionally refuse to do, and why is that good? I think it refuses to make superheroes. It is making characters that are grounded, that grow in ability and power, but they do not make you jumping mountains and doing crazy stuff. Like they don't. It
Mm,
grounds you in what you're doing. And I feel like everything I've read for the Black Ballad, while there's big epic moments, you wrote the stories to be scalable.
yes.
And that scale sits well in what Shadowdark is. Did you we still haven't got to play together in a Shadowdark game, which is I think during this campaign gonna have to happen. Either I'm
Yes.
running or someone else runs us and we play. Something like that has to happen. But when you were writing the adventure in the end and kind of going through and you finally got to sit down and look at like the monsters I converted over, did you see how easy and how clean everything fits on like a page for like a fucking level 15 monster?
That was that was one of those moments as a game writer, right? When I've worked with a lot of other systems, but this is the first time that I've gotten to like work on a Shadow Dark thing.
Right.
To be like, okay, wait a minute. I can compile all of this into this and every ability. For the longest time, I've ranted about stat blocks that make the storyteller do more work by referencing other parts of things.
Yeah.
And this allows you. I had already moved away as a directive for Storytellers Forge. We even for our 5e or other products, we intentionally tried to write shadow. We're now trying to do this style where everything is self-contained
Mm-hmm.
into a block that has something meaningful where you don't have to flip around the book a whole lot. But you only need a few abilities that are just
Yeah.
really, really awesome because those are the things that players remember in a fight. You need a few iconic abilities, and that's something that's awesome.
Well, I want to show one of the monster stat blocks off. We have enough in here that I feel we can tease a little bit before the Kickstarter comes out. So this is the one where I was like, I need a description for this thing. I have no idea what I'm creating. And it was, is it Rapax? Rapix? The tentacled creature of death and destruction? The spherical
I
mask of grasping maws and translucent skin, purple red veins, and infinite dripping tentacles. Look, dude, I don't know what your nightmare was that night, but this sounds like something I would like make on my own. Is like, hey, I had some sleep paralysis and a nightmare, and this is what came out of it.
um, that or a really bad day of cooking.
Oh God, some hell, some food wars. So we reevaluated what the stat blocks look like. A friend of mine and a friend of Shadowdark and friend of the Arcane Library, Kree, you've probably picked up some of his stuff. Him and I have talked about stat blocks a lot, and I want to give credit where credit is due. I believe that as a group of designers, you when you use something that you have been working with other people, the credit should go to that person. So there are three major things that we talked about, and one that he was really hammering home. One, the idea of having the AC, the level, the hit points, and the alignment all in that little tight block at the top. Almost card like without feeling like a card was really important because you can look at the top as you're flipping through, find something in appropriate level in AC, or if you really need a hit point battery or an alignment, you got it. The next thing that was important was a stat block being quick and readable instead of being buried in a line of black text. And you'll notice we added some color to this. Because while we all love Shadowdark, we wanted to have something that was our print. When they made the Shadowdark license, they told you to make your own thing. Don't just copy what we do. So we didn't. We made black and white. We added some color. Every category, every section of the book is its own color to signify where you are. And we did that for, you can see also in the stat block here, the other thing I want to credit Cree for is the Z. Look,
Good. I was gonna make you talk about the Z.
this argument, look at me, people. We can fight about this all day. But until you have to go through stat blocks in a 6 stat game, and every stat is one letter, but that last one, you now will understand, as a layout person, why Z, the Riz, is necessary. Because that Z gets rid of having to use a CH for everything. And it
You know,
made such a big difference in layout when I was doing
you know
it.
what? Wait. You just referred to it as the Riz.
Yes.
I have had people ask me, "What's the Z?" And I'm like, "It's charisma," and everybody's like, "Well, there,
Charisma.
there's no," and I'm like, "No. From now on, it is official. It's the Riz."
It's the Riz. It's the Riz. So charisma, you could put an S there, but that's strength. What are you going to put an A? Well, that doesn't make sense. You use C, but Khan uses it, and it comes first in the lineup. And one, Z is such a sexy font and letter to use. Like everyone loves that in typography. We love Z, we love X, we like O's, we like T's because there's symmetry and some fun stuff that you can do to them. But charisma is it's how you say it, and it's
And
just an identifier.
everyone who's watching right now, you can tell Eric has that right level of obsessive compulsiveness on that everything's got to line up with the single letter, and
Uh,
like he just obsessed about
it
typography
was
and
Cree's
Z's and
fault.
X's.
Yeah, it was my
You know
buddy's
what?
fault. And I
Hey,
was like,
it's
I agree. I agree. And then you started seeing other publishers making Shadow Dark stuff using it. It's not just us. But that's all it is. It's just charisma. It's okay. You can just swallow the letter. It's okay. Take your pill. So we love what it is, but you can see that we also went through the attacks are in its own thing. It's got some special abilities that are on here that are on screen right now. The infinite form is probably my favorite. Naming this stuff was a lot of fun. But they can grapple, hold, or carry as many objects or creatures as needed. So you want to wipe a party? This level 6 guy has got you. Send 2 of these in, take out. I just see entire villages getting dragged away.
and I love the absurdity of what you could do with that narratively
Yes.
as well. As
Yes.
many as it's needed, right? Where do they keep coming from? Where does this creature, and narratively, I understand the story implications of why this is the case
As
because
many
I
tentacles as
understand
you need.
what it's trying to do and what it represents.
But I wanted
Uh,
mechanics for that narrative. And that's one of those things in Shadow Dark where you get to have fun with abilities in just a really zany but entertaining way. And that's frightening. Like, look, dude, that is a tentacle Kanabari. That thing is rolling through your city and there is nothing left. It's just taking and consuming and just making itself into something. I had a lot of fun writing these, and they all have this kind of flavor without giving too much away. So really happy about that. I think it converted really well. The last thing I have here for our things that we were going to discuss to kind of close us out tonight was what part of Shadow Dark made you say, this is the altar we should build this on?
Actually, Eric, I'm going to ask this one back to you because here's what happened. All right. So, those of you guys are watching, I came into this being like, hey, it's just another rule system, right? I got this whole narrative campaign. Let's just do a PDF and, like, call it a day. Not necessarily the behemoth and year-long design
Yeah.
enterprise that we ended up taking to make this book.
Yeah.
We really did, Eric, you really pushed, and I sat back and listened. And I was like, okay, I know the kind of storyteller you are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much the same way as a storyteller. And so you're right. The mechanics should flow into and expand upon the narrator. So, what
Yeah.
alter? Because you took a look at here's this massive campaign that we wrote in this storyline, but to convert them into Shadow Dark, we made this its own unique product. So, what alter was your core designing light as the designer?
Oh, flipping it back on me. How dare you?
Yeah, sorry on
So
this one because you already captured all my mood and theme.
no, it's fine. It's fine. Look, okay. I would say the reason this was the altar for it is one, I've already been designing a lot of stuff in Shadow Dark, and I saw this as a designer an excitement in the community of designers, players, and GMs from the other people who have made amazing products. Like there's the Dark Space gentleman who just made their sci-fi version. What I saw every time as people were building is fundamental mechanics and building blocks that anyone can build something upon. And in a way that you did not have to worry as much about breaking a system, like ruining a system. Look, if you make 1 feat too many, 1 or 2 levels of a 20 level class is off, you break things in 5e. You shatter entire campaigns. It's why it takes people a long time to make a good 20 level class. But when you look at Shadow Dark, Everyone's like, there's no options. There's only 4 classes. You're wrong. You have to think of every piece that you pick as one more add on to your thing. Your ancestry gives you something. The talent tables each give you something. There's enough classes that if you die, you can roll a new character up in 10 minutes. And then if you're playing conviction mode, you can add some memory loss on and slap some new things on. Everything that you do builds one more thing onto a character. And the thing that I think was the most important when I was developing things like this is when Kelsey designed your hit points, the weapons that are available, the armor that is available, those defined the class different from the one to the left and right. So as we built the new classes, which we're not going to go over today, we made new gear because I was like, you know what? If we're going to do this, I want new gear as well. Shadowdark gave building blocks for a new generation of gamer that wants emergent and freeform storytelling while still having the mechanics they love when it gets down to combat, but it doesn't slow down the game. Nothing's worse than absolute pause because combat started. Most combats in this game are like 3 to 4 rounds in general, and they are brutal. And you start the game with the thing that everyone loves to say: roll for initiative. The fact that that gives the GM a compass to follow around a table makes narrative storytelling much easier. It's not that that person has to go first. You can ping pong all around, but when people start hemming and hawing, you go, all right, you had an 18, let's go. What do you want to do? And it allows you to use that love language of rules to call to action someone at the table. And when you play things like Vampire, that is one of the things that became problems. You're like, all right, who wants to go? And then everyone talks over top of each other. You'd be like, all right, hold on. You're an 18. Are you ready? Yes? No, you're not. We'll come back to you. 15, what about you? Remember, I have a 10. When we get to me, I'm going, and shit's going to get wild. A lot of freeform storytelling games don't give you that. And this just merged all these things together for me. So, and I wanted a story. And Black Ballad's a story, and it's heavy metal. I'm not even wearing my heavy metal hat. Next one we do, I'm wearing my heavy metal hat. This is blog on it. Like, they'll scream.
Yeah, I suppose my Nightmare Before Christmas shirt is not exactly,
I mean, look, I wore Undead today. I wore Vecna. Wait, we can't say that, right? That's owned by somebody.
Yeah. That's
yeah. So to me, this altar was the idea of building a story and building a setting on top of a great foundation. If you don't have a good foundation, your house is going to fall apart, and it just has it. It really does have it. So what are we doing? What are we doing next? We did this love letter to Shadowdark. What else can they expect from us in these other videos as we kind of wrap up tonight and going into other things? I know you want to talk about music at some point.
I'm going to want to talk about music. Probably going to want to talk about like the production of this book at some point. Like I think that the behind the scenes of what it takes to make and produce a book is like a fascinating topic, right?
During scary times of publication.
Yes.
And like we ain't quitting because of it. We're gonna find a way around it.
For me at some point, I know one of these videos we're definitely going to get to dive into, here's sort of the consequence of the Black Ballad and why this whole thing even it existed, and like some of the deeper lore that's kind of built around the edges of this book.
I think we're definitely gonna have to talk about Crossroads at some point and go over what that actually is, because that will be in one. If you pick up Black Ballad, you can get it the full book. But there are more things we're doing in the future that you might see some stuff around this. And then we have to talk about the novels. The fact that this setting has novels, let's be real. You only hear about that stuff with things from D&D. You got your Forgotten Realms and your Planescape stuff that came out of the years, and that's where we kind of got those novels. But you don't see a lot of TTRPGs today that have novels around them. Like, there's just not. Cosmere, there you go. I guess I named one. But there's not a lot, and you guys have novels and more coming.
Yes. In fact, actually, it's kind of the thing that we wanted to do as a studio. We found our brand with a recent project. We want to make immersive TTRPGs in a box, and I grew up reading those freaking novels from Dragonlance, the Vampire the Masquerade novels, the Legend of the Five Rings Clan novels, and I was always disappointed because sometimes your players don't have time to all play. Let's be real, scheduling's the final boss of adult D&D gaming.
Shadowdark. Make a character in 5 minutes.
But scheduling, you still need players there,
I
right?
know.
Somebody's got something going on, and
I know.
this way, novels you can read anywhere. And
It's true.
one of the novels we have with this campaign was, like ties so well into what we're doing.
Yeah. We're going to talk about how converting went. I don't know if that'll be during production or its own video or one I shoot on my own, but converting is maybe that'd be one where you get to ask me a bunch of fucking questions on how I converted what you wrote, because converting was the challenge. And then high level 5e to Shadowdark and what we were thinking. Were we drunk? That definitely is going to have to happen. And then we'll have to talk about add-ons and bundles at some point in time as we get closer to the Kickstarter.
And we're still definitely going to have to actually be like, hey, we're actually going to market on this date. That date is March 17th, by the way.
Yes, we are going to market March 17th. That's when the Kickstarter is going to go on. Down below, you can find all of the links for how you can file the project, what's going on. There'll be one for Storytellers Forge. There's obviously going to be one for the pre-launch for our Kickstarter page as well. And then we have a new campaign that we're going to be doing. Not a tabletop RPG campaign, but a campaign where we want you to submit some stuff and have a chance to maybe have characters in upcoming products. But we don't want to say much more than that.
That's its own video.
Yeah, that's its own video. And that'll be, I think our goal is February for that, without putting a real hard date. But I'm excited for that because, man, we go to a lot of conventions and I can recall so many stories. And I want to go find people in the industry that we appreciate and look up to and see as amazing designers and writers and ask them this question as well. But that's it for us today. Remember, March 17th, it'll flash on the screen in some crazy way and editing later on if my brain remembers. And then this guy here, do you want to at least say who this man in the hat is between us before we close?
Johann, the Ashen Shepherd, the mascot of the Black Ballad, the very first person that your dead characters typically meet in the main storyline, and the most belovable bag of bones who has gambled away his skin.
Oh my God. He's Florida Man?
He is Florida Man.
So with that, he's our mascot, and there will be some other merch coming out with stuff with him. We can say more about that later. But that's it for today. I'm Eric Frankhouse, designer for Black Ballad Second Chances, and over here,
Rick Hines, co-founder of Storytellers Forge and one of the main writers on things.
And I don't know about you guys, but go kill some of your players. Get ready for this campaign. We'll talk to you guys next time.